Hello everyone and welcome back to Make Believe, where we're playing World and Economica. Now last time we finally got an intro video which was pretty great, but we're now I guess we're going to experience the actual game. That was all prologue. So if I So Yoshiharu went to visit Central City to reaffirm his dreams and goals, and now we're back. As expected, visiting Newton City had replenished my reserves, after they had been worn down by a week of trading. Paying no heed to the temptation of consumerism found in the bustling streets, I headed straight back to the church. Now that's his home, at least for the next 20 days, or 19. The scenery changed so much that it appeared as if I was no longer on the same lunar surface. Even now, I started seeing more and more buildings on the verge of collapsing. Yeah, big difference after you just left Newton City. There were people draping fishing lines into the canals and people growing their own food to cut costs. There were people selling steam buns, people resurfacing knives, and even people repairing shoes on contract. It was a place filled with bustling life, far removed from the realm of high profits. Flicking my tongue at no one in particular, I jumped past throngs of buildings. That's a word they never heard before. Buildings while making my way back. While getting yelled at by an old fellow, I jumped off the rooftop of a 4-story building and flew into the air. I could see the lunar Chinese restaurants off in the distance. Are you gonna eat there for lunch? Looking around, I could also see the dirty building-lined street that the Big Bowl Cafe was on, as well as my favorite tunnel that opened out into the hill. Okay, so from that high jump, he's seeing everything, all the place he commonly visits. However, it was impossible to stay there forever. Thus, I descended gradually with a gravity 1/6 that of Earth tugging at me. Oh, so moon gravity is 1/6 of Earth. I did not remember that. I absorbed my inertia by bending my knees, then flew up one last time to cover more ground. It's not like I could do this outside of paths with few people passing by. Depending on the circumstance, I could get pursued by police on grounds of dangerous behavior. However, this speeding sensation was simply unbearably awesome. It was totally suited for me, having just been rejuvenated by Newton City. And we're back at the church. Well, it's time to get cranking and look for stocks that would bring me the money. And the moment I opened the door and walked in, who did he bump into? Hagana, Lisa, or a new character? I don't know how I'm gonna voice that line since I don't know who it is. No, stop. A shrill voice resounded in the air. For a second, I wondered if I had walked into the wrong church, but it didn't seem to be the case. I could still hear the voice. Again, I don't know who it is. No! Don't do this to me. No, stop. Stop it. It sounded like it was coming from the halls of the main building. Oh, okay, so probably one of the... Hard to imagine one of the two saying that. My mind spun in circle for a few seconds, then cleared up immediately. Burglar? And the voice was Hagana? Okay, thank you. Now I finally understand who that was. Even though she was a damn cheeky and arrogant woman, she was still a woman. I jumped off the back of a row of pews, flew over them. Ooh, the music. I don't remember if we had this music when he was running out of the cafe, if this was the soundtrack or not, but still, it's pretty cool. Kind of has like a surfer vibe to it. I don't know how to explain it. Don't know if you agree or not, but in Dash Down Hall. But look at him going to protect people from his home. I heard the shriek and the sound of getting flipped over. I opened the half-closed door that led to the living room, threw off my backpack, and made a tight fist. He's coming into the punch. By now, my head was swimming in adrenaline, and my body was fully primed for battle. I'm prepared for whatever twist this is. The only thought in my head was advice I had for a guerrilla fighter from the Caucasus region, who had said that yelling when jumping to a situation had a negative effect. Yeah, yeah. Very commonly we see that in anime, and it's like, why did you shout? Rushing grabbed people's attention. Rushing grabbed people's attention easily. There we go. However, if you could drop down right away, you disappear from the sight and approach your target swiftly. Then, once you were within range, you get up in one go and apply overwhelming force. If your opponent was armed with a gun, just jump off to the side. He wouldn't be able to hit you. If he wielded a blade, just go straight for him. It's not as scary as you'd think. Now, if he's unarmed, just do whatever. Oh! Okay, there was actually another person there. Somebody, don't know, adult male with a mustache and briefcase, I think. We kind of saw him very briefly. I aimed at the dude who had just trashed the room. Oh, he trashed the room and took a swing at him with my fist. I planted my feet with all my strength to increase the friction, increasing my effectiveness mass and thus the power of my punch. Just imagine the scene in slow motion. As long as your mass was low, the power of your attacks would only be what Newton's third law gave you. My punch made a clean hit on my opponent, who had just turned towards me in surprise. But a nice sounding smack, the punch went through unhindered. Yeah, Yoshiharu did not see any context here, so I'm just waiting for that twist. But that seemed to be enough. I got pulled along by the inertia of my punch, and by the time I stopped spinning on my other foot, my opponent spun around awkwardly and collapsed right there. Hey, beat it in one punch. One punch! He's learning from Saitama. Still learning though. Yeah, he wasn't passed out, although he might have gotten a concussion. His eyes were zoned out, and his hands, which looked like they were trying to grab onto something, were trembling and stiff. Preparing myself to kick him to the air at moment's notice, I called out to Hagana without overrating my gaze one bit. You okay? In the corner of my eyes, I could sort of make out a figure clad entirely in black. It was Hagana. She was standing motionless and silent, stuck against the wall. No audible reply came back. However, she was silent, not because of the usual arrogance factor, but because she was simply unable to speak. Yeah, I can imagine the surprise in that scene. Like, she was screaming, no, stop, and then suddenly a guy rushed in out of nowhere and punched that guy into the ground, punched the guy down to the ground. The man grabbed onto the fallen sofa with one hand and tried to prop himself back up, somewhat. Then he grabbed the hand and twisted upwards. Wow, nope. No mercy from Yoshiharu. I squeezed the bony part of his wrist and twisted upwards and outwards. Oof. His body fell over easily, and the extreme pain made the intruder's thoughts quite clear. Hey, what are you? Oh, let's look. Okay. So, he had a lot of papers with him. Look at Yoshiharu in action. Oh, look at the sofa over here, upside down. Those were my words after I rotated his arm behind his back, putting me in a position to let me apply additional pressure at any time. This guy was a middle-aged man, about the same height as me, and he had a dreamy appearance, as well as frizzy hair that was mostly thin now. He looked like a crafty guy. I looked past that man at Hagana. It didn't look like he had assaulted her or anything. The only thing, but I'm kind of gladly surprised with this. How he's worrying about Hagana here. He rushed into the doctor, checking up on her, like, pleasantly surprised. The only thing I could see was that the corner of her damn cheeky eyes had gotten red and that her hands were trembling a bit. So she was crying, I'm guessing. If you don't answer properly, I'll kill you. Even if you remain silent, I'll kill you. Well then, Yoshiharu stepped up. I knew many deserted lots, and I also knew ruffians who came from war-torn regions on Earth. In a place where there was a possibility of maybe just one murder a year, my threat probably sounded like a child's bluff. However, that phrase would depend on the circumstances. The man I saw do pretty much instantaneously let out a hoarse shriek. I twisted his arm lightly and asked him again, "What are you, a burglar? He does not look like a burglar, Yoshiharu. Did you know that's okay to punish a burglar by killing him?" This time, his shriek was quite clear. "Oh, wait, please wait, don't kill me." That will depend on the circumstances. What's with the mess in this room? Enlighten me. I twisted his arm some more, and he let out a squeal. I knew that he managed to make Hagana cower in fear. She was surprisingly feminine and totally out of it. "It's a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. I'm not a burglar. No way." "So then what are you?" I'd hardly expect some neighbor to come over for tea and then get angry enough to flip over a sofa, send the table flying with a kick, and rip out the carpet. The room really did look that way, like a building marked for demolition. Furthermore, I myself heard Hagana shouting for him to stop. And also, her hand was trembling. "Oh, well, but it wasn't my fault. It's her. It's her fault." "Oh yeah? Well, aren't you the self-righteous burglar?" "Like I said, I'm not a burglar. It's true. I'm a debt collector. A debt collector." "Yeah, that looks a little more likely." I mean, true, a lot more likely than a burglar. But I would not expect a debt collector to look exactly like this. But it's way more sensible than a burglar. Debt collector. "That's right. I came to collect some old money. It's just my job." I didn't think he was lying, but I decided to look over at Hagana anyway. After Hagana stared at the suffering man, she noticed my gaze and turned towards me in surprise. "Is that the case?" When asked, she paused for a second and then nodded. Tss. I clicked my tongue and let the man go. The man crawled along the floor to run away, then turned around. "What the? It's just a brat." Wow, all of that happened so fast that he couldn't even tell there was a kid, a teenager, sort of. He just, some guy just beat me up and is holding me down. "If you think I'm a brat, won't you go for round two?" Ooh, I do appreciate that line though. Training up my body had really been convenient for a lot of things. The debt collector shook his head violently and looked up at me through servile eyes. Another word I'm not familiar with. "So, a debt collector is one of those types, huh? They even have the right to do all this?" "Well," I figured. "So, what are we gonna do?" "Huh?" I said, "What should we do? Should we call the cops, or are we really gonna do some debt collecting?" The debt collector clearly gulped. However, afterwards, he lowered his gaze. "At most, I'd be lectured at all night in the detention. Besides, if you call the cops, I'll just read them this loan statement. I don't really want to, since it cost me some fees, but I could totally just go get the courts to foreclose on you." "Well, aren't we a spunky one?" I moved my knee up to scoot over to him, but he suddenly pulled back, so I was unable to force him down anymore. And with that, I remember one thing from my training. If your opponent stopped yielding, go for negotiations. Well, you're here for the instrument fees, right? "Yeah. See, you understand, right? In this world, you can't just borrow money and refuse to show even the smallest sign of paying it back. Besides, I got totally treated like trash." The debt collector glanced over Hagana. Following his lead, I also looked over. She was cowering against the wall like a pinned butterfly. "When the money was lent out, it was all humility and everything, you know. Well, I guess it was Lisa who was lowering her head." "Well, I can kinda see that." "Oh, you see, right? I don't have to put up with being called a dung beetle or space trash. Look at Hagana past the grumbling debt collector. I could see her looking downwards and staring at us with sullen, childish eyes. Yeah, your heart is actually being the mature one here, surprisingly. Besides, it's not like I'm asking for the entire principal back. I know that's impossible anyway. But this is also business, so I like for the interest to be paid back at least. And as he said that, there's no money here for you, Hagana yelled out. The debt collector shrugged and turned towards me with, "See, I told you," written on his face. He's probably in the right. I heaved a sigh of resignation and looked up at him. So, how much? What? The interest. How much is it? Oh, his face lit up. Don't know that you're gonna... Depends on the amount. Saying too much might get result in the offer's retraction, but saying too little might end up with losing money. Oh, sure. Saying too much might result in the offer retraction, but saying too little might end up losing money. So basically, depending on the amount he says. So if he says too much, Yoshiharu might take back, like, actually no, I'm not gonna pay. But saying too little, then he just gonna end up with less money than he intended to. I could see the guy calculating this question in his mind for a moment until he finally came up with an answer. 200 moles. I remember how Lisa reacted when I had given her 200 moles. So this was it, huh? So that's this month's interest or this year's interest? This month's. Since my top blew over, I did a bunch of things, but this is lower than usual. It's actually 6% annual interest on a 50,000 mole principal. Compound interest is kind of annoying, so I had just set up as a 250 moles a month. Wait, compound interest is kind of annoying? Is he speaking for the customer or for himself? Like, too much of a bother to calculate this whole compound interest. I'll just give it simple interest and that's it. I can totally see that being the case. Since I had totally thought this was some shady loan deal, I was surprised at the relative low interest rate here. Yeah, for 50,000, he said, wait, 6%, 250. Oh, I guess it was supposed to be 6%, but he decided to just do 250, which is like 5%. But that's simple interest, not a compound interest. To hide my surprise, I ordered him coldly. Show me the loan agreement. What? At first, the debt collector was speechless, but eventually he reluctantly showed it to me. Those numbers he quoted were certainly written down here. I sighed it again and stuck my hand into my pocket. Here. I had run out 100 mule bills, so I carefully counted out 200 mules worth of bills and handed it to him. He reached out carefully, as if I would smack him the moment he laid hands on the money. I can totally see him doing that because he was scared of Yoshiharu. After receiving the money, he hunched over the money and counted furtively. It's good. Alright. Well, then I'll be off. Huh? Wait up. I slapped his leg quickly with my front leg, causing him to fall over. What is it now, Yoshiharu? Then I got up, walked over to him, put my knee in his face, and squatted down. He got some nerve not giving me a receipt. Ooh. Yoshiharu. Aren't you a student? No, aren't you a student? Talk about money doesn't bother me. You tell me. After I said that, the debt collector resigned himself, cut me a receipt, and returned dejectedly. But that's true. Like, he could just the next day come up like, hey, you still owe me those 200. Oh, somebody else paid. Yeah, it was not you. I have nothing here to prove that somebody else paid. So yeah, getting a receipt was very important. Good job, Yoshiharu. I leaned against a magnificent door of the church in which hung a crucified man and saw off the maid's faint silhouette before looking back to the receipt in my hand. 200 moves of interest was probably a large amount of money in these parts. If I wanted to earn 200 moves with the job Lisa offered to refer me to, it would take 4 to 5 days worth of income to come up with that amount. So like a week if we don't count the weekend. Furthermore, in that period of time, there would be no food expenses and rent, along with other consumables and such that must be paid. Yeah, that's the thing. In other words, low income meant you couldn't save up money. If you couldn't save up money, you couldn't invest. If you couldn't invest, you'd be forced to make money by selling your time forever. Shovel could not fill a giant hole. Great analogy. You could only fill a giant hole by pushing a snowball downhill until a snowball into enormous proportions. I actually hadn't seen snow before, but I had heard advice before about investments and really liked this particular analogy involving snowballs. Yeah, I liked it too. Simply put, that's why this 200 moves weren't just 200 moves to me. It's something that could become 10,000 moves or even 1 million moves in the future. When Lisa returns, I'd have to get my money back. At least, I saw her putting 200 moves in the cupboard. I wasn't going to let her just say she didn't have it. Yeah, that's the 200 moves you gave her. Well, you paid her, to be more exact, because that's your rent for 20 days. While pondering that, I crossed the prayer hall and returned to the living room. Hagano was putting the furniture back in place. She was emotionless. What a surprise. But somehow, I got the feeling that she was angry. It was probably the rough way she was handling the overturned table and kicked up carpet. Nah, that could mean anything. I would prefer not to refer to her by something that would give off an aura of prettiness, such as girl. However, Hagana unmistakably possessed the delicate XX chromosome, so she was as weak in body as she was strong in spirit. Okay, so you're saying that women are generally weak in body but strong in spirit? Okay. It would be a different story if you had just arrived from Earth, but for people who had lived on the moon for a long time and had gotten accustomed to the low gravity, they'd only be able to deliver a proportionally low amount of force as well. Yeah, it makes sense. She was trying to put the big sofa back in its place, but it wasn't going too well. She might have noticed me standing in the doorway, but she hadn't asked for any help. She looked like she was just short of telling me that she wouldn't ask for help from the likes of me. I thought she was a cheeky girl, so there was no obligation for me to help. Besides, she hadn't even thanked me yet. I walked past the doorway and was about to go back to my room. I heard a voice just as I was passing by Hagana. Why won't you help? So, if he's obligated to help without her even asking, just... She couldn't move the sofa back in place because she couldn't lift it all the way up and the leg was stuck. She tried picking it up from different angles, but none of those attempts worked. Even though she was panting lightly, her eyes were fixated on the task, which with the weight of a dumbbell. Furthermore, it looked like her princess hubris was in full force. Yes, you. I sighed heavily and replied to her. Why do I need your help if I haven't been asked? Sure enough, Hagana lowered her head. With her slender chin and slender neck, her lowering her head made her a textbook example of a delicate girl. My eyebrows wrinkled as I wondered if she was really putting on a show, but she answered me with the following. If I ask, would you help? I could feel my face twitching. If I got mad now, I'd hate myself for acting like a baby. Hence, I prepared myself and answered. Yeah. Help me out. I looked back at Hagana in surprise. She was staring back at me with pure black eyes. I still don't see this as black. And maybe like reddish? Are you deaf? And there it goes. She continued for a 1-2 combo, just like a roundest princess with a whip. If they push, retreat. When they retreat, push. Hagana's great at arguments. Well, Feeling regret? I really had to help her now that I said I would. Alright, I get it. Shit. What was the last one? She asked me to repeat what I said, and I clicked my tongue angrily. Hearing that, Hagana totally looked oh my god, condescendingly at me, wondering what was with this baboon. I felt that it was not in my best interest to let Hagana into my view, so I averted my eyes, put my hands on the phone sofa, lifted up, and fell bending my knees. Lifting it above her body height was a little bit of rebellion on my part. Keeping in that position, I asked her, "Oh, where would you like this place, milady?" I asked her, injecting ample amount of disdain onto my tone. However, Hagana didn't show any sign of caring. She looked over the carpet immediately and pondered. It seemed that my disdain raised not an inch of ire from her. Oh, ire, that's a common word. She really got on my nerves. The rear leg should line up with this spot. The sofa should face perpendicular up to this way. After being instructed briefly, I lowered the sofa as she had instructed, since I didn't feel like nitpicking. It's a bit crooked. Being told that, I gritted my molars, took a deep breath, and was somehow able to suppress my anger. Is it okay now? Satisfied? Yeah, it looks that way. Agna nodded and turned around immediately to start collecting the various little items scattered on the floor. No words of appreciation came my way. Right? She didn't thank you for the sofa, she didn't thank you for the debt. Like, I get that Yoshiharu has an attitude, but Hagana isn't helping either. I wasn't expecting any to begin with, but I ended up feeling anger similar to disappointment. Yeah, understandable. In the village where I grew up, if you did something for someone, they thank you for it. If someone did something for you, you return the favor. Of course. The coach over there, which I had considered simple, crude, and outdated, had somehow rooted itself strongly in me. It's became a habit, like you're familiar. I scratched my head while trying to contemplate all the difference between Hagana and me. It's like a accent. Like, if you're from a certain place, you end up having an accent. I had gotten into a bad mood again, wasted the wonderful resuscitation I had enjoyed from trotting street. Maybe I should go stroll to Red Valley sometime. On top of that, if I associated with Hagana anymore, there'd be a possibility I might end up laying hands on her. Of course, I didn't mean the sexual sense, but in the physical violence sense. Considering the context, yeah, I was thinking that was the case. I was about to leave the living room and walk into the hallway leading to the inner rooms. And thus, when I heard a voice call out to me, I totally thought it was a hallucination. You know what? Let's leave this cliffhanger here. It's gonna be a little short episode, but I don't know. I don't know how long the scene would be, so let's leave the surprise for next time. Let's go back. So, that being said, see you next time. Bye.